What's up, Rockstars? Today we're going to be talking about how the new Elder Scrolls game by Chip Theory Games is incredibly expensive, whether or not that's justified, what's going on, why does it cost so freaking much? Let's discuss. Thank you to my channel sponsor Into the AM. As a company that believes hard work and a great product is a proper way to conduct business, I am delighted to have them as part of the channel. They have some of the coolest graphic t-shirts around and an absolute best fit and feel that has continually exceeded my expectations. With new shirts arriving all the time and other products like boxers, hats, and even a monthly shirt club, I wholeheartedly recommend them to you. Check out the link in my description of this video for an exclusive 10% off everything they sell. We're going to be talking about The Elder Scrolls Betrayal of the Second Era. You can see it on the screen right now. And this, by Chip Theory Games, is a big deal, to say the least. It funded $300,000 plus before anybody saw an ounce of even what they were buying. We'll talk about that. It's now at over $1 million in just, I don't know, maybe an hour-ish. Like, it's not been very long at all. And really, it's just an incredible breakthrough success that a lot of you guys are going to enjoy. Right now, there's almost 3,400 backers, and that's going to keep going up. But just like we saw with Elden Ring, the price seems a bit inflated now that there's an IP attached. Let's go ahead and just see what's in. Let's go and dive in. And as you might note, I am backer number 622. I'll discuss why I'm a backer in a little bit as well. So if we look at this, first of all, when this first launched, all of this was not here. You had the basic image at the very top, and then you had a like the rewards section. You had a shipping information, though the shipping information I think was just like the blur, but pretty much like the preview we saw for a long time now. You didn't see any of the components you got. You didn't see how to play the game or anything like that, and it still funded $300,000 plus. Now, the reason it didn't show up quite well is because GameFound's backend system has a lot of it's a very complex tool, and it's not exactly the most well laid out UX experience for or a user experience for people actually using it. And so you can actually, some of it's kind of cool. You can actually like make your campaign look a certain way and not show it, essentially, or not share it publicly. And you can even be live and be crafting that. Very useful for when you're making things, but then when you come to launch, sometimes there's some issues around that. I don't know if that's actually what happened, but I've seen it happen in other campaigns where a certain section might not show up. In this case, pretty much the whole campaign didn't show up, but they still went live. That being said, they made over 300,000, and this is in an era where there are other established creators making games in a series that people know and enjoy that don't even make that much. There's indies that are struggling just to barely fund and not getting that much. But Chip Theory Games is an established company, and so they definitely know, okay, people know who they are and very much enjoy their games and the whole experience around buying it. So that's one thing. And of course, there is that sweet, sweet IP, the Elder Scrolls, attached to it as well. If you didn't know, IP is all the rage nowadays. It's an easy way for companies to make a lot more money, much more guaranteed, with less effort. That's not to say Chip Theory Games didn't put less effort into this. But in general, it's just not as much. You don't have to, run the gauntlet as much when people already have positive association with your product just based off the painting on it, if that makes sense. It's just how we are as humans, and it's just really, really exploded in the last 6 months or so on the crowdfunding websites that I typically cover. So I've done a lot of IP stuff. If you recall, there's stuff like the Dune game by Kaman. I think people saw like just like one single like round of gameplay there, and yet that made tons of money. Like, it's not that difficult to do, especially if you associate it with other stuff. So, for instance, the Kaman one was associated with the Lord of the Rings game that's so popular. This one, of course, with Chip Theory Games and kind of their bread and butter here. So, that's kind of the synopsis there, and I'm not going to say too much more on that. You guys know IP sells, and you don't even have to see anything to make hundreds of thousands of dollars at this point. Just slap on the Elder Scrolls, show a preview page on accident. I'm not saying they did this on purpose, of course, and make a ton of money. This was guaranteed to make money, but we're already at over $1 million. As you can see, we're now over 3,400 just for me talking. It's that quick. Let's go in and discuss the pricing of this. Let's go in and just talk about Chip Theory Games' pricing structure, what they've done historically, and kind of where we're at right now. So if you look at what you get, first of all, when it comes to what's in the box, we're going to go in and skip to that. Thank you, GameFound, for having headers that are anchor tags. Not revolutionary, but apparently it is in crowdfunding. And what's in the box? It says all the components, artwork, and design not final. Of course, it's an IP game on top of that. But one thing they do is they kind of do this spread, and they do this on almost all of their campaigns. It's very hard to get a concise feel of things because they'll list things separately. So for instance, to count how many dice you get, you have to count these, 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 you have to, like, they spread it out, right? You're not just seeing all the mats that you get for, like, you know, hexes. Instead, it's listed in 3-4 different ways. With the chips, same thing. It's listed here, it's listed here, it's listed here. So they kind of spread it all around. It's a very smart way to make it look like more than it is. Chip Theory Games does very, very nice premium stuff. We'll get into that. But they don't throw everything in the kitchen sink at you like a lot of Kickstarters do. Now, pros and cons to that, obviously. Obviously, you're getting less stuff. Positive, you're getting less stuff. It's a little bit easier to store. Yes, even it can get worse. Look at Joan of Arc if you want an example of something else. So it's just more like a normal board game, and less like this Kickstarter extravaganza of 3,000 minis and 12 boxes plus small box expansions plus 18 dice packs because you need to have the metal ones and all the different colors and all this other stuff. They don't do that. Okay. They give you quite a bit, but it's definitely, it would look like less compared to something like Aeon Trespass Odyssey, right? Like they're giving you way less than Aeon Trespass Odyssey, like amount-wise. So they kind of spread it out like this. I think it's smart to do it like this. It looks good, but it also makes it very hard to see exactly what you're getting. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. Also, their games aren't exactly all equal. Some include way more dice. Like this one actually includes a ton of dice, whereas others include a lot more cards or maybe more chips or more mats or, you know, whatever it might be. So it's kind of hard to compare there. Nothing is ever apples to apples, of course. But you do get these neoprene mat game tiles. You do get neoprene mat player like boards and stuff like that. You get these chips that they're known for. We'll talk about those. Most of them are the heavy variety. One of them is the light variety. We'll talk about that, of course, also. And then actually quite a few cards, especially for the game. Now, that being said, again, it's not what you're normally doing. You're doing a campaign here. There are 35 equipment cards. So again, much less. You're not getting 150 different pieces of equipment. You're getting 35, right? So a very trimmed down experience in that sense. Okay, so moving on from that, and then of course books and bags and, you know, all that other good stuff. Let's go ahead and talk about the expansion. Here's the expansion here. This is the only other gameplay thing they've revealed, and I believe the only other gameplay thing they're going to have that for like an add-on. And it gives you exactly here. This is actually listed, which is kind of cool. Now it still kind of separates a few things when it comes to like how many cards you're getting and stuff like that. And you don't necessarily get a great sense of the size. Like we're assuming these are all the same and whatnot, but as you can see, these are the larger. I don't know if they're tarot size or what, but this is a small smattering of what you get. But you don't get necessarily that much more either. Like you get 6 chips. Okay, so there's 5 right there, right? Okay, so moving on from that, we're gonna go to shipping. We'll go on and just scroll down. Shipping is free, and by free it means it's thrown into the price. Of course it is. It's not that they're just losing millions of dollars. It's included in the price. Now, pros and cons of that. Before we even get to the price, because we're going to discuss that right after this. But let's talk a little bit about the shipping thing. There are, of course, pros and cons with everything, right? So, for instance, a con, if you pay VAT, now, because the shipping price is included in here, the cost is higher, the VAT's higher, you're paying VAT on that. That's not always the case when it's done afterwards. That's my understanding. I am sure there's a lot of variety there, but from the discussion I've seen from people in Europe, that's one of the things that's kind of a con on there, is you can normally get it at a store, which they don't do a lot of MSRP off here, so you can get it in the store where the shipping was already paid for or whatever. It's not really included in the same kind of price. It'll list about what you're costing now, but you'll pay less in VAT. And so you can kind of bypass that shipping if you don't back their Kickstarter. So if you're in Europe and you pay VAT, just know you're paying more than you would if you went to your friendly local gaming store. You're probably not actually getting this cheaper either. That's typically the case. They don't typically mark down during the crowdfunding. So if you're backing now, often it can mean you get it sooner. It means you get different stuff, but you are paying higher on that VAT. One of the positives, though, is that you're done. There's no question about what it is. They may quote $50. Let's say I'm going to use $50 later. So let's say they're going to say $50, which we'll talk a bit about that in a moment. But if they do that, you don't necessarily know, even on GameFound, unless they do the kind of like, hey, it won't vary that much, little checkbox there. You don't know exactly when that's going to be charged or exactly if that it will be enough. it might be actually more than that. So knowing that you've bought it, you've paid for it, you don't have to bother with it again, it reminds me a lot of how Kickstarter used to be back before even GameFound was a thing. So pre-COVID, they used to do this all the time. They would just estimate shipping and add it in there, and you wouldn't actually have to pay it afterwards. And it was so nice. Or you paid it right at the beginning of shipping, and you didn't have this delayed shipping that some campaigns do, where you have to like wait until they're ready to ship, and then they open it back up, and you have to pay again. A lot of other companies did that. For instance, Shadows of Brimstone, right? That was often a common thing where it wave 2, wave 3 even, they open it back up, you have to pay for shipping at the time. It means it's accurate, and so they can do that, but it means you're paying long after we're done paying for the game. So it's really nice to have it up front, really nice to be it locked in, really nice to know exactly what you're paying for. That's super, super great. It really is. That's a very good positive thing. So pros and cons, of course. And of course, sticker shock. So this is something is why a lot of companies pulled freight out, and now suddenly freight is shipping, whereas before it wasn't. It was a cost of manufacturing and getting the product there, but it wasn't actually the shipping. The shipping was always just the last mile shipping that we hear about so often. The reason they started taking freight out is because it kept the price on the campaign low. So what you saw, oh man, this is $120. This is a great deal. It's because it doesn't include the freight that normally was always included in there. And when you go anywhere else but this microcosm bubble of crowdfunded board games, freight is already included in the price. It already is. They only do that here to make the price look lower. It's because sticker shock is a thing. If you don't know what that is, it's that shock you get when you first see the price. Now, often you could cool your jets on that, but a lot of times that's a point of exit right there. So a lot of times you're like, okay, yeah, that's a lot, but, and that's what a lot of this video is going to be. But when it comes to like the sticker shock, again, you see that and you're like, nope, and you nope out of there and you never come back. So companies always try to avoid sticker shock and kind of lead into a higher price. It's why all expansions are typically done over time. One of the reasons why, so that it's just $30 more. Oh, it's just $40 more. Oh, this expansion's here, but it looks really cool. It's just $50 more. And then suddenly you're spending $450 on the game. If you just come out there and said, $450, buy this, you typically get that sticker shock, and some people cool their jets on that. But you can kind of lead into either not realizing how much you're spending or justifying it along the way so it all seems reasonable. Whereas, again, sticker shock, you shock out, you don't even decide if it's reasonable, you just jump ship. So it's really nice to have everything up front. It really is. That's nice. It's non-manipulative. I dig it. And for places like, Canada and Brazil and these expensive countries to ship at, they're winning out a lot on that. And it's definitely everybody's kind of paying into the pool, if that makes sense. Okay, so here's rewards. Let's go ahead and discuss this. So we're going to go first with the base game. Base game, $195. This is a $200 board game. So yeah, what gets you $200? Like, if you think that this is $200 worth, you don't understand how much manufacturing is. This is definitely an inflation of price. Now, there's more to it. In fact, there's even some, in my opinion, some manipulative practices. We'll talk about that. But this is definitely like buying from Apple, right? You realize that you're getting a quality product, but you also realize that they're robbing you blind when it comes to how much they charge, and they're definitely making a very nice profit on things. And we'll discuss that as well. But yeah, it's just, this is not $200 worth. It's not even close to $200 worth. A big board game, like, actually, here, I'll show you something. Hold on. You're going to see me actually stand up here, okay? Let's see here. I think it's this. So if I were to show you this. Almost done. To manufacture this, all of this, is about $55. Now that includes a lot of stuff, right? It includes the miniature molds, right? Miniature molds are incredibly expensive, thousands of dollars, and you can typically fit 3, maybe 5. It depends on how simple it is. Maybe just 1, maybe not even 1 miniatures on one of those molds. So, but then it's cheap to print. We're going to talk about cheap to print plastic here in a moment. But either way, a lot of upfront costs there, and then it's distributed out, so they kind of have to average it out. So averaging all that out, it costs about $55 per box to make that. Okay? So this is definitely not 200, not even close to 200. It's far less. There are less cards. There's more dice, but the dice are just kind of like the the printing on there. They don't look inlaid or anything like that, at least from the picture. The tokens, we're going to talk about these tokens, or these chips, I guess now. If you've ever bought poker chips, you've had these chips. Obviously the design of them is different, but that's all it is. When I talk about miniatures, right? One of the things is it varies in price a lot. While the mold is expensive, if you just have a simple mold that's cast in one, in other words, the mini is one piece, front and back, that's actually not too bad because it takes very little space on the mold. It's when you have to break it apart in pieces, right? Where there's an arm coming out here in front of the chest, so there's this cavity here, so they can't pull it out of the mold because there's plastic here. So they have to make the arm separate. Now it's over here and the body's over here, and it takes up now a whole mold, $5,000 for one miniature mold kind of thing, right? So you get that sort of stuff that costs a lot of money, very expensive. These plastic things are close to dice. Now, dice, if you didn't know, are also just plastic injection molds, right? It's just on a little sprue and they inject it into the dice, and then it even has that little bit of like a thing where they cut it off with a sprue, but then they coat it in this paint and they tumble it and tumble it. That's why a lot of times when you get brand new dice, you'll see all these scuff marks. It's because it was in a tumbler to polish it, right? To make it to where you don't see that edge that was cut a little bit, right? And that's often why they're rounded, right? You got to make them a little bit different depending on how you're doing things, but suffice it to say, again, it's all just cheap single cast plastic. And with stuff like dice or these, it's one mold. So instead of designing and tooling and adjusting this, big metal mold piece that you have to make custom for an advanced miniature, it's a circle. It's a circle, and then it's just a mold with a whole bunch of circles, and they can pop them out and pop them out and pop them out and pop them out and pop them out. They are very simple and very, very, very cheap to make. I'm talking very cheap. I wouldn't be surprised if it's literally pennies per chip. Literally that much. Now, they do have to add the sticker on top, which does add a little bit of money. But again, it's not nearly close to miniatures. Not even close. So making these, while they're premium, and they feel great. Again, if you've had even poker chips, you understand the nice feel of that. If you've had those nice, actually weighted poker chips or casino chips or whatever you want to call them, again, they feel great and they're very good quality because they're so simple and round like that. It's just very easy to feel nice, but it is not expensive to make. It's not a premium product, if that makes sense. It's actually one of the cheapest things you can do when it comes to replacing miniatures. That's not bad at all. That is not bad at all. Like it's the same mold that made these. They changed the plastic and changed the sticker. Very cheap, just like minis or dice. That's why dice are so cheap to make, because you can just print out a whole bunch and then paint whatever color you want on it, or use whatever plastic you want on it, or stamp whatever symbol you want on it. So again, very, very cheap. So definitely a premium there. Now, or a premium pricing there. Same with the neoprene mats. Neoprene mats actually are not that expensive. Like, they actually are one of the highest profit items that most devs talk to me about, along with dice. Dice are people who are spending any more than $1 per dice they're just loving that money because it's very cheap to make. Neoprene mats, same thing. It actually typically has a pretty big markup. What us consumers are willing to spend versus how much it costs them to manufacture, pretty nice. Now, that being said, these are very nice ones. They're very custom cut. Otherwise, if they're like this, then they're typically stitched very nicely with a good stitching, good coloration on it. A lot of times you have to pay more to actually find a manufacturer that can print. A lot of times neoprene mats can be pretty dark. So to have vibrant colors and stuff like that and a good quality print that doesn't look, like the weave is good and everything, it costs more to do that for sure. And you do get those. And we'll talk about these health chips in a moment. But that is very nice, but it's not as expensive, not as backbreaking as you would think, especially because of the amount they put in here. So, and a lot of like dungeon crawl games and these big expensive games, you're going to get like 100 game tokens, like tiles, right? That are front and back, and they have to do all these scenarios. Chip Theory games is just by design, their games don't cost that much to make because of the scope of what they have to manufacture, right? They don't need a whole lot of game tiles. And because you don't need a whole lot, they have to make less. So upgrading those up, and it is an upgrade to neoprene, pretty darn easy. Then we have this here, these health chips. Now, this is kind of an interesting thing. Notice it says light chips. So these chips are lighter. They are not as heavy. The plastic, the density, all that is not quite the same as what you get on the normal chips. They will feel lighter. Now, what that does is it makes it feel cheaper. So these game mice, as an FYI, or really just mice in general, is a great example of how we feel that, or game controllers, like console game controllers, weight equals quality. And for a long time now, we've been able, once, chips got so small and stuff like that, we can make very nice premium electronic devices wrapped in plastic, and it'll feel really cheap. It'll feel like a toy, like you're going to break it or something, because it's so light. So they purposely add weights to it. These companies literally do that. And now for the mouse, it's also the moving around, but even like a gaming controller, something like that, if they don't add the like rumble feature, which is these weights that spin typically, it feels cheap. They purposely weigh down products so they can charge more for them. And all it is metal weights inside of plastic, because it's just how we feel. And it's just, I feel it too. If I pick up something and it's like, you ever got one of those off-brand controllers back in the day, like a Mad Catz or something like that, and it just feels like hollow plastic. Well, it's because it's just plastic with a few little chips with underneath the buttons to direct input. It's very, there's not a lot there. So they add weight to it to make it seem more premium, so you'll spend more. This will be the same effect here. When you get these health chips, they are going to feel cheaper. These are going to feel nicer just from the weight difference, even if it's the exact same quality, everything. Now, why would these be lighter? You might think, well, maybe because, all the costs is everywhere else, but we've already established these are incredibly cheap to make. They will not break the bank making those premium. Very, very cheap, not bad at all. And I'm talking manufacturing costs, of course, right? So they do that because if we go to add-ons, of course, it's an add-on. This is the same as, like, let's say when Star Wars Legion came out, right? And it turns out that if you played Darth Vader, you would have to roll more dice than they gave you in the box. So you would have to roll the dice, count what was there, and then roll the same dice again, or go get your own, or do something like that, right? They didn't provide enough, but they did offer day one dice packs. Video game manufacturers have done this for a very long time, ever since DLC has really started, which incidentally, thank you to the Armored Horse in Oblivion. So anyway, which it's funny because it's Elder Scrolls. Essentially, you're purposely causing a problem and then selling the solution, right? This is inconvenient to do? Well, bypass it with this, paid item. Hey, do we give you a whole bunch of these tokens that feel really great and hefty, and then give you all these, like, ones that feel cheaper? Well, don't worry, you can buy another one. It's purposely crafted for stuff like this. Again, of course, my opinion, but I think it's pretty obvious what's going on here, that one thing, the health, the thing you're going to be messing with a lot, by the way, it feels cheaper and is, different than all the rest, and then they sell you the way to get it, where they suddenly add the sticker, then they suddenly do that. They're manufacturing these anyway. They're just charging you for them now. So it's actually $35 more. And if you didn't know, you can get weighted poker chips for like $10 with a nice one. It'll even come in a nice box. So $35 for these is actually, again, they're making quite a bit of money on there. I also wanted to point out the neoprene mat here. So $60, they are easily tripling the price on you on that. Tripling. So if you didn't know, and before I get into that, campaigns are a holistic thing, right? You're not just selling one product where that product needs to make all the profit. Instead, they have a multitude of things, and some things will have more profit than others. Anytime you're adding or offering a variety of product, some will have more. That, like I said, the dice. They're often the case. Kamana is even on like record saying to their investors and shareholders and whatnot that the dice are their biggest seller and their most profit, because you get so much profit out of it, and then they sell so much of it. So some things will help pay for other better deals. Hopefully that makes sense. So this is definitely a profit thing right here. If you didn't know, even in like big neoprene mats, like Warhammer ones, so like 4 foot by 6 foot. If you're in Europe, that's 8,000 millimeters. I don't know what you guys use, but I'm kidding. Calm down. So 4 foot by 6 foot. And it'll typically cost you, in other words, you're making quite a good profit on this because these companies, it's like their bread and butter, $45 to $65. Whereas $65 being the double-sided, very expensive version of that, but obviously probably the best quality that you're going to get. Now, this is stitched. Typically, those aren't stitched. That does add to the price. But either way, if $45 is already making a profit on a neoprene mat that's actually fairly thick, double-sided, 4 foot by 6 foot, imagine how much profit is in this 61. Especially when it's one big bulk order like this, plus the retail, they're going to have a massive quantity, much more than these Warhammer stores that are just trying to sell things, as they come. So they are getting a great deal on this and making a ton of just pure profit, printing cash. Okay, so there's definitely that premium stuff. And we're going to talk about whether or not it's okay, what we get out of that. Going on to this $195, let's say the shipping averages out to about $50. Now, of course, again, everybody paying the same amount. Some people, that's a great deal. Some people, that's a bad deal. I talked about stuff like Joan of Arc and all this stuff. A lot of times when we see like Zombicide charging $66 and we complain about that, they are shipping a ton of stuff, often in 2 different waves. This is a box here and a box here. Now, again, there's a few other things, right? But again, all the shipping is included in the prices. So they're saying $195 for this. Even if it was $50 shipping, that is still a crazy amount. So in the past, they have actually sold stuff for not that much. I mean, again, it's never apples to apples, but definitely less than $100. Definitely less than $100. Like this is pretty pricey for the stuff you get. It's definitely their most expensive one, and it just so happens to be attached to an IP that people love, and it's just like Marvel Zombies, right? Zombicide, the same thing, where suddenly it was way more expensive, but it's also attached to an IP. You see, the IP allows them to do a lot more abuse on us because we love the IP. I love the IP. I had at least 50 plus mods installed on the Skyrim. Like, seriously, it looked gorgeous at the time. It probably doesn't anymore, but at the time, my computer could barely run the darn thing, and I had to make sure the order of the load was all good, but I love it, okay? That's great. I remember, even in Oblivion, I would constantly jump because I wanted to get my jump, I get it. I'm a fan, and I love this. I'm a backer. I'll talk about that momentarily, too, but let's not kid ourselves. They are definitely getting more profit out of this. They're definitely, even with the IP, because, and I know some of you are probably already commenting, well, the IP costs. But they sell more. If you didn't think you were going to make more money, why would you pay for the IP? The IP pays for itself through added volume, more than pays for itself through added volume. So you might get a little bit less per box, but you sold 10,000 extra ones than you would have otherwise because people love Skyrim. It's why stuff is branded in Star Wars and Marvel and Elder Scrolls and all this other stuff. That's why they do it. It makes them money. Businesses aren't dumb. So they don't have to charge more for that. All that is double dipping. Now they get higher volume and the same profit or more, because now they have the excuse that some people give them to say that, oh, well, they're charging more for that. No, that's a volume thing. That's I'm going to appeal to more people thing. That's why you do the IP. It's not even like a quality thing. It's the appeal, the amount of eyes that you're going to get, the amount of coverage that you're going to get, the amount of people wanting it is going to be higher because they're familiar with that, because they already associate positive feelings towards your product before they even know what it is. So you can make $300,000 without even showing what's in the box like they did. That's why. Because Chip Theory Games has a brand and the Elder Scrolls has a brand, both of them positive, and it's just easy to make money. They don't even barely have to try, actually. In fact, a lot of companies skimp. I don't think they skimped. I think they're just charging more. Which, again, I would prefer them to charge more than to skimp, to be honest. Like, I don't want no skimping. But then you do get the stuff like the let's sell you the solution to the problem we invented thing, which is always kind of fun. Now, let's go ahead and talk about me backing this briefly. So I'm backed at the 230. There's a couple reasons why. I like the IP. I want to have a premium product. We'll talk about the premium product at the very end. And I want to try Chip Theory games. And I hate to say this, but I'm a YouTuber. I will make money when I unbox the thing. I'll make money when I review the thing. It literally kind of pays for itself. That's not fair, but it's true. It's honest, and that's what I want to be with you guys. So it's a little bit easier pill to swallow when that's the case. It's a little bit easier. If I'm already kind of leaning towards it, but I'm like, but it's expensive, that can push over the edge. So don't take me backing it as well, if you do it, then that means then every consumer would. No, definitely not. Like, this is a expensive game. $200 for this, knowing how cheap this is to manufacture, is an obvious IP abuse. obvious IP of use. Now, let's go and talk about quality. I mentioned Apple earlier, and I know a lot of you guys own Apple products. I own an iPad. Okay, so not even against buying Apple stuff. I'm not, even though I have Android phones, I'm not against it. I totally understand it because everybody knows they're making money. Everybody knows that if the Apple logo's on there or Nike or whatever, pick your thing. You know, if you buy the shoe that has the Nike swoosh on it, that suddenly it's more expensive. But you do it for a few things. Brand recognition. You associate with that brand, or like a sports team almost, right? Or other people do, or you associate that with quality or whatever, right? So there's that mental thing of I'm buying this and it makes me happy because I enjoy this company, right? And quality. Way back in the day, in the NES, Nintendo Entertainment System, so 8-bit, really old school gameplay of consoles. A lot of games are crap. A lot of them were. There was a lot of crap out there and a lot of good. And it was hard to tell what was and what wasn't. So Nintendo decided to have this Nintendo seal of approval. Now, I could go into how that kind of waned later on, but that's not the point. The point is that the idea was if we put our stamp on it, that stamp means that you can now expect a certain level of quality or a little bit of confidence, right? So I'm not just buying a video game that looks pretty good, but it might be crap. I don't know. Now I'm buying a video game and I pretty much am guaranteed that it's not going to suck really, really bad when it comes to how it runs or controls or whatever, because it has that little seal. That seal is the Chip Theory Games logo here, is the Apple logo here, is the Nike logo here, right? That's what that is. When you buy a Chip Theory Games game, you know they are making a healthy profit. It's why they're able to do what they do and at the quality that they do it. And it's good. Like, it's good for a company to make money. It means that they're not going to try and swindle you out of everything. But I'm cautious about those light health tokens. But we'll see the trend there when it comes to trying to get more when you're already getting lots. But it's good to not be desperate, right? It's good to know that they're not going to be begging for money to ship this in a year when it costs too much, right? We know they're not going to go out of business tomorrow. We know all this stuff because of the logo. And that logo, that stamp of approval, we know we're going to get a premium product. We're not going to skip out anything. It's going to look beautiful on the table. It's going to feel great. That logo allows them to charge more. And that charge more also helps ensure that it's good. I know a lot of you hate when I mention this, but I use this example a lot. Linus Tech Tips. I know. I'm already hearing like all 5 of you, but you're very vocal. I mention them too often. But they recently did like a screwdriver that's really expensive. But first of all, they explained kind of, okay, here's everything that goes into it. But even all their other products, their hoodies and shirts and thermoses and all this other stuff, they talk about it openly. It's like, yeah, we charge more, but that more charge makes it to where we actually have people that answer the phone when you call us, that actually help solve the problem, that if it comes in dented, you just get a new one, not credit later, or you don't get the runaround, or you're doing all that. You're paying for better customer service. You're paying for guaranteed happiness with your product or your money back. You're paying for consistent delivery. You're paying for all of this. That's where it goes to. That's what it is. That's what I think Chip Theory Games has going for them here, and why I'm also able to back there. Because the other side of the coin is board games. Now, we could, in theory, ask a buddy to photocopy the rule book, draw on some paper, do theater of the mind, and play a board game. We don't need physical products almost at all. Literally. Or with these board games here, I could pretty much play any board game in existence if I knew the rules, and I was willing to proxy. It's pretty much just it, right? The reason we're paying hundreds of dollars for this is because we want the physical components that are nice and look great. We talk about like table presents, right? That look great on the table, that feel great to work with. It's why I like miniatures so much, because I feel it adds to the look, because I feel it adds to the feel, right? And because I like painting them. And they look cool. But that's why, right? Because otherwise, you could use standees. Otherwise, you could just draw the name of the thing on a piece of paper and move the piece of paper around. You could do that. You don't need the game board. You don't need the miniatures. You don't need the chips. As long as you know what all the information on those stickers are, let's go to the what's in the box. You could do this on poker chips. You don't need to buy this. Buy a set of poker chips for $5, the weighted kind, the nice ones. Draw on them, and guess what? You now have the exact same component. But it doesn't look as good. It doesn't feel as good. And we are willing to pay more for it. It's why we're board gaming. It's what board gaming is. Otherwise, you would just do that. You would just proxy everything and not pay for it. We pay for it because we want it to be nice. We want it to be smooth. We want the gameplay to be smooth. And that then means that we want a premium product. And so when you see stuff like neoprene mats, when you know that the card quality is going to be good, when you know that, for the most part, the chips are weighted and nice, when you know that the stickers are good and everything's gone together well and they've fixed anything they need to fix, that, oh, look, there's a shot of it right there. I can skip by it over every time. That's what you're paying for. So is $195, $200, let's not kid ourselves, $200 warrants the single box there, plus stretch goals, which of course are doing stretch goals. I'm not going to even bother going to it. They'll already have exploded by the time you see this video. I don't know. For me, yes. In fact, then the expansion is actually not that much. It's like a $30 expansion. So I was like, yeah, I'll get the expansion. I got all the gameplay. Yeah, why not? And if I like it, guess what? I feel I'll probably get $230 on it. That's like 2 trips to the movie theater for my family. So, I would love to hear your thoughts. What do you think about the use of IP here? What do you think about the sudden increase in price and the happenstance that it's also a popular IP? Do you think that's happen chance? Do you think that's related? If so, why? What do you think about quality? What do you think about all this? Do you think I'm full of crap? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to have a chat with you guys about this. And I'll talk to you guys again very, very soon. Bye, guys.